James Comey stands indicted. President Trump says more of his enemies will follow. And drama at the UN, a mass walkout of Benjamin Netanyahu as he threatens to hunt down Hamas. President Trump's latest warnings about Tylenol. We'll talk to a pregnant mother who says she won't take the medication. Hello, I'm Caitlin Huey-Burns, in tonight for Major Garrett. Welcome to the Takeout. One of the president's biggest political enemies now stands indicted. Just 5 days ago, the president sent out this post on social media to his attorney general, saying, quote, "Nothing is being done. What about Comey, Adam Shifty Schiff, Letitia? They're all guilty as hell." He went on to demand justice must be served now. Former FBI head James Comey was indicted on 2 counts, one for making a false statement and the other for obstruction of justice. This morning, the president denied that this is revenge, but went on to say there will be more.
Who is the next person on your list in this retribution?
It's not a list, but I think there'll be others. I mean, they're corrupt. These were corrupt, radical left Democrats.
We begin tonight with our justice reporter, Jake Rosen. Jake, I know you were following this late at night last night, so big news for everyone. I do want to play, though, what James Comey himself said in response. He released this Instagram video. Let's take a listen.
My family and I have known for years that there are costs to standing up to Donald Trump, but we couldn't imagine ourselves living any other way. We will not live on our knees, and you shouldn't either. My heart is broken for the Department of Justice, but I have great confidence in the federal judicial system, and I'm innocent. So let's have a trial and keep the faith.
All right, so Jake, can you kind of break down what we know about this case? What exactly are we looking at here?
Well, we know that former FBI Director Comey is under an investigation in a number of other districts as well. And specifically in this one, the clock was ticking because the statute of limitations was 5 years plus on bringing these charges for lying to Congress, allegedly, in this case. And it was set to expire on Tuesday. This, if you back up, as you just mentioned, President Trump and the White House pressured the U.S. attorney who was in the Eastern District of Virginia late last week because no indictment had been brought down. As a result of that, he resigned from that office. A former White House assistant, former defense attorney of President Trump in that classified documents case, Lindsay Halligan, was brought in. She was the one who was willing to put her name on that piece of paper that indicted Comey, and the grand jury indicted, obviously returning 2 of 3 charges. They attempted to secure another charge of making false statements. The grand jury rejected that. So again, according to the Justice Department manual, this is not necessarily a major charge. There would be minimal to no jail time if he's convicted at all, if it gets to trial. But generally, there are a number of concerns about this, not just that firewall that's traditionally between the Justice Department and the president in terms of ordering direct investigations. As we know, President Trump has done that in a number of pieces. We're almost on dozens of people that President Trump has now said on social or in speeches of who should be investigated for doing certain acts or allegedly doing certain acts. But there's also big questions about actually bringing this indictment forward as somebody who's never been a federal prosecutor, never been a local prosecutor.
Halligan.
Yes, Lindsay Halligan, to bring this forward and how the case looks going forward, especially given it's only a 2-page indictment, not a lot of details, and we will see Comey in court in the next couple of weeks.
And she's the only person that signed on to this. I mean, can you walk us through what the turmoil in the Justice Department has been like?
Well, it goes back to just that True Social post that President Trump put out this week saying that the pressure needed to be on and that Lindsay Halligan would be willing to do the bidding of the person, Eric Siebert, who was in this job before, who President Trump put in that role to potentially bring these charges. That wasn't done. A Department of Justice spokesperson just tweeted out right before this that Pam Bondi stands behind this indictment, stands behind it, and that the Justice Department is willing to do whatever it takes to lend assistance in this case. However, what prosecutor is going to go forward and bring this? Is it a close aide or ally of Pam Bondi in the Justice Department? Is it a career prosecutor? Who is willing to continue this? Lindsay Halligan certainly has never actually argued a case like this before. It would certainly be unprecedented for her to do so. We've seen some top Justice Department officials come down from main justice to go do these in high-profile cases yet to be determined.
That's interesting to keep an eye out, but it's also important to underscore that she has never done this before. Jake Rosen, thank you very much for your reporting. We appreciate it. Stand by. We're going to turn now to our legal experts, Scott Frederickson and Peter Zeidenberg. Join me now to further discuss the Comey indictment. Scott is a former federal prosecutor, and Peter formerly served as the Deputy Special Counsel for the Department of Justice. So, gentlemen, thank you both for being with me here. If you will indulge me, I want to kind of lay out for our audience the defense in this case and the prosecution. I'm going to task you with offering what exactly the prosecution is in this case. If you were serving in that position, which, to be clear, you are not, what are they trying to do here?
Well, that's a great question. In all fairness, this is a weak case. There are all kinds of red flags right out of the box. The prosecutor here couldn't even get the grand jury to agree on all the counts they wanted. That pretty much never happens. So they are going to walk into a case in which they're going to find themselves playing defense and on their heels very quickly in front of a very skeptical federal judge who knows what's been going on here. Everyone's aware that the previous U.S. attorney, an experienced prosecutor, and his staff had apparently determined there was insufficient evidence to bring this case, and yet here this case is. So if I was forced to make the decision on the case, one, you have to have an experienced prosecutor running this case for the government. I'm not sure you can get one because any experienced prosecutor is probably going to say, thanks, but I don't have an alternative career in mind right now. But you can't have Lindsay Halligan, the aide to President Trump, who's just stepped in with no legal experience, standing up and learning how to be a federal criminal prosecutor and trialer for the first time. So one, get somebody experienced to run this. Two, I think the only strategy that works for the government is try to get this case to the jury. They're going to be, the government's going to be facing very strong motions from the defense, vindictive prosecution, insufficient evidence. They're going to try and get the memo, the government itself prepared that there wasn't enough evidence. But you want to persuade the judge, get it to the jury, let the jury decide. Because one advantage the government has in the Eastern District of Virginia, and I served there, is that the government and the agents who testify are held in high esteem. When you walk into that courtroom and you're government, you are held in high regard. You've got to use that, but you've got to be as buttoned down on this case, no mistakes, have someone experienced, because the last thing I'll say is they're facing Mr. Comey's lawyer, Pat Fitzgerald, one of the most experienced former prosecutors, defense lawyers, one of the best in the country right now. So it can't be amateur hour for the government. They have to have someone experienced, and they have to try and get this case to a jury.
And Peter, I mean, given everything that Scott just laid out, it seems like a pretty easy defense. Is that true? Or what are the potential pitfalls for the defense?
Well, I'm not aware of any pitfalls for the defense. I think it's an exceptionally weak case. I mean, you know, no trial lawyer would ever say anything's automatic because it's up to a jury. I mean, just in terms of the jury that Scott mentions, I think Virginia is this area of Virginia that's drawing from. I don't know that it's a fairly blue area. Eastern District of Virginia has had a reputation in the past of being a very pro-government jury pool. They're a pretty sophisticated bunch, though, and I think that they are going to, if this case makes it to trial, and there will be pretrial motions for selective and vindictive prosecution, and they're going to be really substantial motions. If this case were to get to trial, it's hard for me to imagine the jury would not know the context, which is they were forced to bring this case. And then you get to the case, and they're relying, apparently, on the testimony of Andrew McCabe, whom the Trump had tried to indict previously, who fired from the FBI the day before his retirement in an attempt, unsuccessful, to keep him from getting his pension. Andy McCabe is not going to be a friendly witness for the government. He is a friend of Jim Comey's, and apparently, from the reporting, he was not interviewed by the government prior to this indictment, which is unheard of.
Yeah, I was going to ask how rare that is.
To base a case with the most essential witness not in your pocket. They don't know what he's going to say, and they can be fairly sure he'll be hostile.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I echo what Scott said about Pat Fitzgerald, whom I worked with as a special counsel. He's an outstanding lawyer, very formidable, and he's going to do a great job.
Now, what also strikes me about this case, as unusual as it is, you have the president out there posting on social media pretty clearly, I would think, the reasons why he's doing that. But in a legal frame, how do you take these social media posts talking about something must be done, something must, you know, naming Comey, naming others? How do you take that into consideration?
You take that with several aspirin or Tylenol. I mean, you know, President Trump has already laid out really strong stuff for the defense to use in a vindictive prosecution case. You can't erase that. And plus, he's infamous for making statements all along the way, which at some point is really going to upset this federal judge, if not right off the bat. Continuing statements are about the worst thing you could do, because that's going to come in as well. Yeah. But, you know, we all know you can't control President Trump. So that's kind of another disaster. As I said, there's numerous red flags here flying for the government, for a case like that. And that's a big problem for the government.
And just quickly, Peter, I mean, what's the timeline looking like here? Will be an arraignment in October, but...
He has a right to a speedy trial within 70 days. Okay. But I would imagine that they will be bringing these pretrial motions because they're just too tempting. And there's too high a likelihood of success to skip them and move right to trial. So I think that this will drag out. But the Eastern District of Virginia is also known for being an extremely efficient courthouse. So what are we in, September? You know, within 6 months, you could have a trial.
Okay. Well, I'm sure we will seek your advice and counsel as we cover this in the coming months. Thank you, Peter and Scott, very much for your time. We appreciate it. And days after gunfire rang out at a Dallas ICE facility, protesters are met with tear gas at a Chicago detention center. The tense moments as the country remains divided over immigration policy.
When the most savage terrorists on earth are effusively praising your decision, you didn't do something right. You did something wrong, horribly wrong.
A warning for Western leaders from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, his fiery speech to the United Nations General Assembly, and those countries who are now recognizing a Palestinian state. Plus, this pregnant Maryland mom says that she won't be taking Tylenol. The reasons behind her decision and what she thinks of President Trump's warning over the popular painkiller. The Takeout returns in 90 seconds. And welcome back. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the United Nations General Assembly today. Diplomats from Arab, Muslim, and African countries, as well as several from European nations, staged a walkout. Netanyahu remained defiant, telling world leaders that Israel must, quote, finish the job against Hamas. Here's a little more of what we heard.
To the remaining Hamas leaders and to the jailers of our hostages, I now say, lay down your arms. Let my people go. Free the hostages. If you do, you will live. If you don't, Israel will hunt you down. If Hamas agrees to our demands, the war could end right now.
Former U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Daniel Shapiro, joins me now. Great to see you. Thank you so much for being here. I understand you were up in New York earlier today. I would just like to know, what were your reactions to what we heard from Netanyahu there?
It was a defiant speech, Caitlin. I think the audience was primarily his domestic audience. The UN is not considered friendly territory for Israel. Of course, we saw the walkout. Israel feels isolated there, and it is isolated right now. So many countries are looking for a way out of this war in Gaza. He wanted to demonstrate to his public that he's not cowed by that pressure. Unfortunately, at the same time, he didn't offer really a pathway to the end of the war. The hope is that in his meeting with President Trump on Monday, he will pick up some of the diplomacy that President Trump was working on earlier in the week in New York when he met with Arab leaders and put out some principles for a pathway to end the war. What Israelis want is this war to end and their hostages to come home. And so he didn't offer much about that other than defiance. Maybe that comes Monday.
And you know, to that point, Netanyahu has said, and he said again, that the hostages will be, once they're returned, the war will end. Is that really how this is likely to play out?
Well, Israel's looking for more than that, and I think even President Trump laid out a bit more than that as well. They want Hamas to be disarmed and really to be removed from power in Gaza. And that's true really for almost all Israelis, that after the atrocities of October 7th, they can't accept Hamas remaining as the governing authority in Gaza. So there are plans and efforts underway to install a different first interim authority and then to bring some sort of Palestinian authority leadership to come to take over some of those responsibilities as well. It's got to be done gradually. It's got to be done carefully. Security and reconstruction and humanitarian needs all have to be met at the same time. But that's in addition to getting the hostages out.
And the prime minister there also was attacking other countries who have been recognizing a Palestinian state. He said that, quote, murdering Jews pays off, that this sends a message that murdering Jews pays off. I'm wondering what you make of that in the context of what we're seeing from other countries declaring this.
Right. A number of countries did make that decision to recognize the state of Palestine that doesn't really exist yet. So it's a bit of a showmanship by those countries as well, and perhaps responding to their own domestic constituencies out of concern for the pressure they're getting. What he's trying to say there is that if there's going to be a future Palestinian state, which he opposes, but even other Israelis who are more open to it would say it shouldn't be done in a way that is seen as a reward or a victory to Hamas after their attacks of October 7th. It should emerge later through negotiations, through a gradual process, ensuring that something like that could never happen again. So his is a rather extreme way of saying it, but I think it's a broadly felt view among Israelis. I think President Trump and many American officials have expressed it as well, that that question should be done in a way that doesn't seem to reward October 7th.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about, too, because it had been longstanding U.S. policy for a two-state solution. In your view, what is our policy now?
That's a great question. That's a great question. It's true. Since the Clinton administration, or at least the first Bush administration, the second George W. Bush administration, it has been U.S. policy to pursue a two-state solution. President Trump didn't really pursue that in his first term. He said one state, two state, whatever they work out. Then he put out a plan that sort of kind of had a Palestinian state at the end of it. He's got to put together a real post-war plan now, and that's a critical ask that the Arab states that he needs to participate in the rebuilding of Gaza want. They want a pathway to a Palestinian state, so that's going to be on the table for a decision.
And do you think that needs to be announced by the U.S. before these negotiations or discussions that he has with Netanyahu?
I don't think he'll announce it before that, and I don't think he'll announce it in Netanyahu's presence. Netanyahu said again today he's against a Palestinian state ever of any kind. Yeah. But I think there is going to be a process that is going to be put in place as this war winds down. Hostages out, Hamas removed from power, reconstruction of Gaza for Palestinians who want to live peacefully alongside Israel, and some pathway that identifies a future goal of a Palestinian state so that Arab states who really need that for their domestic constituencies can say they are participating in building that future.
All right, Ambassador Shapiro, thank you very much for your insight, and we'll stay tuned to those discussions.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Caitlin.
Good to see you. And lawmakers are sounding the alarm over James Comey's indictment, among them New York Congressman Dan Goldman. I'll speak with him next on The Takeout. Democrats on the House Judiciary Committee are launching an investigation into the ouster of a federal prosecutor 1 day after his replacement signed an indictment of former FBI Director James Comey. Prosecutors have raised concerns that Eric Siebert was forced to resign as U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia over his failure to bring a case against Comey and another Trump adversary, New York Attorney General Letitia James. Joining me now is a Democrat on the House Judiciary Committee, New York Congressman Dan Goldman. Congressman, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here. Tell me about this investigation that you on the Judiciary Committee are now waging. What are you hoping to find here?
Well, we're looking to see what the motivation was for Donald Trump to fire Eric Siebert, as he said he did. And whether it is as political as it seems. And there's enough evidence from Donald Trump's own mouth that he fired him or forced him to resign, whichever you want to call it, because he refused to bring criminal charges that were not supported by the evidence in violation of the oath of office that every U.S. attorney takes. And we want to understand what the motivation was for that. And we also want to understand and follow forward to the hiring of Donald Trump's former personal attorney, an insurance lawyer who has no experience prosecuting, the day before James Comey was indicted at the direction and encouragement of Donald Trump. So there's a lot of really, really ugly facts that are here that demonstrate that Donald Trump is using the Department of Justice as his own personal revenge and retribution arm to get back at his political enemies, which, of course, is the stuff of banana republics, not democracies.
And Congressman, as you know, Democrats are in the minority. You are limited in terms of your subpoena power here. So what exactly can you do to extract this information? And what are you kind of up against with that in mind?
We don't have subpoena power. It's not that we're limited. We do not have any subpoena power unless the Republicans agree. So there are two ways this can happen. Either the Department of Justice cooperates with a co-equal branch of government, which is a request of all of the Democrats on this Judiciary Committee, or the Republicans recognize what an affront this is to our rule of law and democracy and take on the lawlessness and the unconstitutional anti-democratic behavior that Donald Trump is exhibiting in increasing escalation, now culminating with what I think is the final nail in the coffin for the Department of Justice as we ever knew it with this indictment of Jim Comey.
And Congressman, what do you say to those who argue that under the previous administration, the Department of Justice was weaponized against the former president? And with these cases, separate from the DOJ in New York, for example, against the former president as well, what do you say to that argument? And do you think that Democrats in the past have exercised any similar overreach here?
I think it is a blatant false equivalency when you look at the Department of Justice. The fact that Donald Trump says that it was biased or it was a desire to get back at him politically does not mean there's actually any evidence to support that. The special counsel, who was not only insulated from the President of the United States, but from the Attorney General, went to the court, got an indictment, got search warrants, laid out in great detail all of the facts. There is no evidence that this in any way, shape, or form was done out of a political animus, either of those cases, the classified documents case or the January 6th case. And so there's just no there to these accusations. And certainly there's not even an accusation that Joe Biden did anything. And Joe Biden didn't even intervene to stop his own son from being indicted by his Justice Department. On the flip side, Donald Trump has signed executive orders directing the Attorney General to investigate his enemies. He has now indicted at one of his political enemies, even over the most unusual and rare occurrence where a grand jury does not return an indictment on one of the counts, which almost never happens. The saying goes, you can indict a ham sandwich. Well, one of the counts that they brought to the grand jury, I guess, wasn't even good enough to be a ham sandwich. And so this is so obviously and nakedly, brazenly political that this false equivalency has no support from the facts and the evidence, but also doesn't justify what he is doing now. And he's betrayed all of his promises that he wouldn't weaponize or politicize the Department of Justice. And in fact, that is exactly what he is doing.
And Congressman, I do want to switch gears just quickly because there is a really critical race in your home city of New York for mayor. You have not endorsed the Democratic candidate in the race, Zoran Mandami. I'm wondering, why not? Do you plan to endorse him?
Well, I've had a very good conversation with Mr. Mamdani, and I expect to speak with him more. We share many of the same principles, same goals, same objectives of addressing our housing crisis, addressing affordability. We work together, in fact, on a pilot program to give free bus fares on special routes. But I have explained to him directly that there are many Jewish New Yorkers who are scared right now, and justifiably so, because 70% of hate crimes, religious hate crimes, are anti-Semitic, and it's gone from protests and slurs to actual violence and murders. And so there are legitimate fears, and I've spoken to him about wanting to see some concrete steps to show Jewish New Yorkers, as well as every New Yorker, that he will make sure that everyone is kept safe and secure under his mayoralty if he is elected. And so I hope that we can continue to talk, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's a really important point, and hope that that message is received. Congressman Goldman, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
James Comey was once the nation's top cop. Now he's a criminal defendant. Our political panel weighs in on the politics behind the administration's decisions just days after President Trump demanded retribution. That's next on The Takeout. Welcome back to The Takeout. Here's what else we're watching this evening. A medical examiner revealed today that the gunman who attacked the NFL headquarters in New York City back in July had CTE. That's the degenerative brain disease linked to repeated head injuries. Shane Tamura, the former high school football player, fatally shot himself and left behind a note that said his motive was anger at the NFL. The 27-year-old had asked his brain to be donated to science so that it could be researched. 4 people were killed in that deadly shooting. Tense moments in Chicago this morning. Protesters were met with tear gas in an ICE processing facility. It's the 4th Friday in a row that they've demonstrated there. ICE called them rioters and accused them of throwing rocks, fireworks, and slashing tires. At least 2 people were arrested during today's protests. And now to our political panel. Republican strategist Kevin Sheridan, who previously served as a spokesperson for the RNC, and Democratic strategist and CBS News political contributor Joel Payne join us now. Gentlemen, happy Friday. Thank you both so much for being here. A few things to talk about. I do want to start with Comey. I mean, Kevin, this is not entirely surprising coming from the president. But how do Republicans navigate it? And are there going to be any political consequences for them?
Well, let's see what's in the actual indictment, because it's a 2-page indictment right now. We don't know. I think Republicans are going to largely support this. You know, it's mutually assured destruction. Democrats went after every Republican they could for 4 years, and you know, this is what was inevitably going to happen, and now it's happening. I hope it's a strong case. I hope they get a fair jury pool because, look, it's still Alexandria, Virginia, and that's not going to be the most favorable place to. And I honestly think jury selection will be the whole trial. Like there is no Democrat that's going to vote to put him in jail.
Democrats went after so many Republicans that they missed. They went after 2 Democrats. They went after Bob Menendez and the president's son, Hunter Biden, all at the same time. Look at that.
Well, I mean, to that point, how do Democrats take this? Because there is the argument that Republicans have been making that the Justice Department went after the president, and especially in those cases in New York, for example. I mean, kind of lay out where Democrats are right now.
The outcome is kind of secondary, right? I mean, maybe this doesn't get much past the grand jury phase. Maybe it gets thrown out. The president seems to be doing everything he can do to make it very easy for Jim Comey's attorneys to go and make some claims in the pretrial process. But what matters more is just the naked weaponization of the DOJ. And you know, I take Kevin's point. I mean, sure, okay. I mean, if Kevin wants to kind of put moral relativity to Donald Trump committing several crimes and being held accountable in several localities
Bragg case was
versus
a joke.
Okay, but if you want to kind of convey that to Donald Trump essentially overruling his own prosecutor who said that he didn't want to bring this case, then okay. Ultimately, I don't think it's good politics for anybody. I don't think it's good politics for Donald Trump. And I think when you have a country that seems to be spiraling with a president whose agenda seems to be spiraling, I don't think it's a good mix.
I mean, Kevin, does it matter? How does it matter if nothing comes of it, that he just has this moment? I mean, politically speaking, that he has this moment.
Normally, the process would be the pain would, in the process. But with Comey, I think he's going to raise a lot of money. And I don't think he's probably going to dip into his own money. And I think he's going to enjoy it because he's a drama queen, and this is what he wants. He wants to be the center of attention. He's already cutting videos, selfie videos.
I don't think anyone deserves to have their government turned against them like Jim Comey's having, like Donald Trump's done.
But for Republicans, those who have been wanting to see this happen, does it matter if nothing comes from it? They just have the indictment.
Well, if it's a really flimsy case and it's a biased jury, so be it. It's enough to. This might not be the last thing. They're still investigating him in other districts. Yeah. So I think you're going to see a whole lot more of these. The base wants it. Trump clearly wants it. Pam Bondi knows that her job's on the line. So
nothing to do with any facts of the case. That was all
we don't know what the facts of the case are yet.
But that
he lied to Congress.
But that was a political argument. I just want to point that out to everyone.
I'm speaking in political terms.
Yeah, I mean that's I think how we have to kind of look at at least the potential consequences here politically. I do want to switch gears a little bit because before all of this, we were all talking about potentially the government shutting down, which it looks increasingly likely that it will. I want to get perspectives from both of you, but Joel, kind of walk me through this because I cover Congress. This is a extension of current funding. Is it worth this for Democrats to have the government shut down? Why not just extend the funding and wage these political fights?
I don't quite think that's the right premise to kind of consider the question on. I think Democrats, one thing that they're doing now that they didn't do in March is they've drawn a line in the sand on health care. Health care is popular with the base. It's able to actually unify Democrats, both in the House and the Senate caucus. And I actually think that this is the type of thing that can start to give purpose and meaning to what Democrats can do. They can point to this and say, here are the types of things that we will do if you give us trust and control and if you put a check on Donald Trump in 2026. So I actually think this is the predicate to why would you give us control of government in 2026? I think they can use this process to do that.
But, I mean, from the Republican perspective, I don't see any incentive for them to
don't threaten us with a good time. If they want to shut down the government over trillions of dollars in spending, go for it.
I mean, is there any scenario in which Trump comes to the table here, right? I mean,
I don't see any leverage. They don't have any cards, and they're not playing them well. Schumer doesn't have anything.
This is the discussion here is about health care. I mean, the ACA premiums that are going to expire would leave millions of Americans in a lurch. You had the Medicaid cuts that would leave millions of Americans in a lurch from the big, beautiful bill. So I think those are the stakes that Republicans are going to have to consider if they consider whether or not they want to continue to threaten to shut the government down.
If you can make the argument on health care and health care alone, that's a better argument. That's not what Chuck Schumer's doing right now. That's not what the Democrats are doing.
All right.
Their messaging is a mess, and I think they're going to lose this fight.
All right. Well, we will stay tuned, and a lot of federal workers are left kind of in limbo waiting to see what happens. So thank you both for being here. A lot to get through. And we'll talk soon, Joel Payne and Kevin Sheridan. Thank you. A lot of news this week about the possible dangers of taking Tylenol while pregnant. Next, I'll speak with a mom about how she's digesting all of this news. You're watching The Takeout. And President Trump is renewing his administration's warnings against taking Tylenol, posting on Truth Social this morning, quote, "Pregnant women, don't use Tylenol unless absolutely necessary. Don't give Tylenol to your young child for virtually any reason." One of his top health officials, Dr. Mehmet Oz, appeared on our show last night and said this.
The Tylenol issue is whether or not we should warn moms who are pregnant today about a problem that we may not know fully the answer to. Is Tylenol a problem during pregnancy for another 5 years? Well, what about the kid today? Are you going to take the Tylenol or not? And I think the best prudent answer is, of course, take it if a doctor says you need it. But don't take it on your own without thinking twice about it.
And Brianna Wilson joins us now. She is a mother of two who is now expecting her third, and she says she will not take Tylenol while pregnant. Brianna, it's great to see you. Congratulations on your upcoming arrival. That's very exciting news. I'm a mom, you're a mom. I was very curious about actually hearing from people who are pregnant because they are the ones that have to internalize all of this information that is being sent out there. So I'm curious, from your perspective, you're currently pregnant, you hear this news from HHS on Tylenol, and now the president's saying, don't even give it to your children, which he brought without evidence. But talk to me as a mom, as a pregnant mom, how you're internalizing all of this information.
Absolutely. Thank you. I think it's a great perspective to bring in because this is the audience that is directly impacted. We're in most cases, main caretakers for the children. And it's an important thing to consider. For myself personally, I have it in the house. They're expired probably. But it is a last option resort because of the toolbox of other options that I know and I've been trained in. I am a holistic health coach by trade. So I feel like my trainings from other holistic doctors, naturopaths, functional doctors, I feel very confident in the science and research they've shared about the biology and how our body processes acetaminophen and harder painkillers at an adult level, pregnancy, and even in young children. So when you really have a thorough understanding of the biology and the levels of depletion for your glutathione that occur when you take acetaminophen. And for those who are not familiar, because I did not know what glutathione was many years ago, it is your chief antioxidant in your body, which is really crucial for detoxification. So when you bring that down in your body and you burden your liver with that chronically, that can be a large concern for our health, for our immune system. And that's just not something that we want to be burdening ourselves with, especially in pregnancy, and having that transmit to the baby. So when I know there's a lot of other things I can do prior to even considering that as a backup solution to whatever ailment I'm dealing with, then I'm going to try my other tools first. And that's going to be, okay, I have a migraine. What's my blood sugar like right now? Have I eaten? Am I hydrated? Do I need some electrolytes? Let's take care of those things first. And when I'm working with clients, those are things that we talk about to stay on top of and keep our immune system thriving so that we don't end up tanking ourselves and putting ourselves in a sick situation to feel like we have to rely on that for a migraine or a fever. My threshold for fevers has also expanded for understanding with my children. If my children have gotten fevers before, and I usually don't have to take Tylenol. I think the last time I ever had to grab for it was many, many years ago, and it was for my first son. So my knowledge was not where it's at today. So we use the cold sock method. It's wonderful. So really just equipping yourself with knowledge and tools that makes you feel a lot more confident. You don't have to rely on that.
Well, to that point, and just quickly, when you are pregnant, you're getting a lot of information from a lot of different sources. I mean, do you feel like there is a clear message coming out from those in positions of the government when it comes to this? Or do you and other women feel like the best source is talking to the doctor, kind of ignoring what is happening in the public conversation and taking things kind of to your personal doctor?
I completely understand that perspective of confusion and overwhelm. I was there many years ago before I feel like I am grounded in the understanding and knowledge I have. And that did not come from my pediatrician. It did not come from my OB. It came from listening to holistic doctors, naturopath doctors, and going through the health coach training I had to really equip me with understanding the body and understanding alternatives. So there can be a lot of noise out there. And I feel like if you can tune in to people that really align more so to your morals and values and what you're looking for and how you want to approach healthcare for your children, then that's the way to go. And I'm happy to be a resource for that, as well as a lot of other great people on Instagram and doctors that are out there.
All right, Brianna, thank you so much for your time and your perspective, and we're wishing you all the best with your third child, expecting in December. Congratulations.
Yeah.
And still to come, as studies show, American men are falling behind both economically and educationally. An online ecosystem is helping those struggling to navigate this new era, and we'll explore that next here on The Takeout. Are the boys and men not all right? An upcoming CBS Reports documentary dives into why American men are falling behind. Here's a sneak peek.
Both Stevens and Navarro's mothers say they're immensely proud of their sons, but share similar concerns about the challenges confronting this generation of boys and men.
Society has these stigmas on a man and like the pressures of a man and what a man is.
Stevens' mom, Joanna, struggles with how to encourage her son to succeed, an issue she says she doesn't have with her daughters.
With girls, you need to make sure that they are, strong. It's easy to say, you need to be strong, you need to be independent, you need to, look after yourself and be in control. And with boys, you can't really say that, because if you tell a boy you need to be in control.
And CBS News correspondent Adam Yamaguchi joins me now to discuss. Adam, I cannot wait to watch this. I'm a mom of two boys, so I am all ears on what you found. Can you start just by telling me how we got here? What did you find?
Yeah, for decades there's been this prevailing call to improve and open up access and opportunities for girls and women in the workplace and in education. It's largely been incredibly successful. Women are excelling in school. They're enrolling and graduating at rates far above what men are doing. And they're starting to see wages or salaries increase at a time when men are actually pulling out of the workforce. And this had all sorts of cascading effects. People are not entering into meaningful relationships, so marriage rates are down. And with fewer fathers in the home, fewer men in schools, boys are left without strong, positive role models of their life, and they're sort of left adrift at a time when social norms around what it means to be a man, what it means to be masculine are rapidly changing.
And what's being done at this point to kind of buck this trend?
Yeah, well, part of this is having this conversation, I think. Caitlin, you and I probably wouldn't have had the opportunity to have this conversation even just a few years ago, right? This is at a time when we're talking about what bemoans young men. Men still occupy the highest rungs of power in this country. And so, there's a little bit of reconciliation that we have to do, but it's really the young people who are being hit hard by some of these changing social norms. We visited one high school with a program that assembles about 24 young boys every month. They come together and they talk about all these issues. They talk about what they encounter in the online ecosystem known as the manosphere, where they're getting all sorts of mixed messages. And so, again, the conversation has started, and that is, I think, key to seeing things change.
All right, well, we'll hear more of your conversation. Adam Yamaguchi, thank you so much. And the CBS News reports new documentary, Boys to Men, Why America's Sons Are Struggling, premieres this Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern on CBS News 24/7 and Paramount Plus. So stay tuned for that. And that does it for us today. Thanks for watching.